More than 2,700 years ago, someone, or perhaps an entire lineage of voices, composed a pair of works so powerful that they didn't just survive history. They became the foundation upon which an entire civilization built its identity. Epic wars that thundered across bronze-stained plains. Gods are manipulating mortal fates as casually as moving pieces on a cosmic game board. A single warrior whose anger could set nations ablaze. A wanderer haunted by storms, monsters, and memories, yet relentless in his desire to find home. We call the mind behind these stories Homer. But here's the disquieting truth. We don't know if Homer was a real person, a poetic persona, or a convenient label for something far larger. An entire oral tradition passed down by countless storytellers. And yet, the Iliad and the Odyssey became cultural pillars. They were not merely poems. They were ancient Greece's textbooks, its moral compass, its heroic ideal. These tales helped shape the very DNA of Western literature, echoing into theater, philosophy, and even modern cinema. So, who or what was Homer? And why do these poems, older than most nations, still hold a grip so strong that centuries of readers cannot look away? This is 5 minutes of culture. Let's return to the moment when memory itself first turned into history. What facts do we really have about Homer? The unsettling answer, almost none that we can prove. Tradition places him in the 8th century BCE, yet this date is built on fragments, guesses, and ancient hearsay. Some accounts describe him as a blind bard, traveling city to city, armed only with a lyre and his voice, captivating crowds with verses that later scribes etched into clay or papyrus. Others argue he was born in Chios, or Smyrna, or perhaps in Ionia. To this day, several places in modern Greece still compete to claim him as their native son. But what if Homer was never just one man at all? What if Homer is a title, or a mask, for generations of rhapsodes who carried these stories in their heads, improvising, refining, and preserving them for centuries before anyone wrote a single line? Imagine compressing the creativity of Shakespeare, Dante, Tolkien, and countless anonymous storytellers into one mythical figure. That's the scale of what Homer might represent. Not a lone genius, but the collective voice of a civilization. And so the central mystery deepens. When we speak of Homer, are we honoring a single heartbeat in history, or a vast chorus of forgotten voices? Before ink ever touched papyrus, the Iliad and Odyssey existed as sound, rhythm, melody, and memory. Picture it, a smoky banquet hall, torches flickering against stone walls, the scent of wine and firewood in the air. A rhapsode stands in the center, plucking a lyre, his chant rising and falling like waves. Around him, an audience leans forward, entranced. They've heard these tales countless times, yet tonight they feel new, alive, urgent. This is oral formulaic composition, a method that allowed poets to hold thousands of lines in their minds. Phrases like rosy-fingered dawn, swift-footed Achilles, and wine-dark sea weren't just poetic flourishes. They were memory devices, rhythmic anchors that made it possible to recall epics the length of novels without losing the thread. But these repeated patterns also created hypnotic music. These were not stories meant to be quietly read by candlelight. They were designed to fill a space, to cut through the noise of feasts, festivals, or even military camps. And that's why, even today, when you read Homer aloud, something in the cadence feels right, almost necessary. The epics were born to be heard, not merely seen. On the surface, the Iliad is about war, but not just about swords and shields. At its core, it's about emotion, the devastating cost of rage, the fragile nature of honor, and the unescapable truth that even the strongest warriors must face mortality. The Odyssey, meanwhile, is packed with gods, enchantresses, and monsters. Yet beneath its dazzling adventures lies something profoundly human, the yearning for home. Odysseus isn't merely battling cyclopes and sirens. He's fighting to remember who he is, while the world tries to strip that away. These are not just ancient themes. They are universal: pride that blinds us, grief that reshapes us, and the relentless search for belonging. That's why, when we read Homer, we're not simply peering into ancient Greece, we're confronting our own reflections. And here's where the debate explodes. Who created these epics? Some scholars argue for a single poet of unparalleled genius, who gathered and unified wandering tales into cohesive masterpieces. Others insist these are layered works, like archaeological sites, built line by line over generations, each performer adding verses, tweaking characters, and reshaping events. We have no original manuscripts. The oldest physical copies were made centuries after Homer supposedly lived. Ancient librarians and philosophers already disagreed on the details, leaving us with stacks of commentary, but no definitive proof. This is what historians call the Homeric question, and it matters because it forces us to ask, are we celebrating the work of one extraordinary individual, or the collective dream of a people? And now, we want to hear from you. Do you think Homer was one man, or a legend hiding the voices of an entire culture? Leave a comment. Your theory might surprise us. Whether Homer walked the earth or not, his influence is undeniable. In ancient Greece, children grew up reciting these verses. Leaders and soldiers shaped their ideals around characters like Achilles and Odysseus. Alexander the Great supposedly kept a copy of the Iliad under his pillow, as though the words themselves could grant courage. Later, Roman poets like Virgil responded to Homer's epics, creating their own works as both homage and competition. In the Middle Ages, scribes painstakingly copied Homeric manuscripts by hand, preserving them through centuries of political collapse and cultural change. Renaissance scholars treated Homer as a beacon of wisdom, and today, nearly every adventure story, from novels to films, follows structures first set in motion by these ancient epics. Think about it. Even modern blockbusters still echo Homer's rhythm, the hero's journey, the inner conflict, the long road home. Perhaps that's the most striking truth. Individuals vanish, but stories survive. And the less we know about their origin, the more they belong to everyone. We may never see Homer's face, know his birthplace, or even confirm if he ever drew breath. But we know this. Nearly 3 millennia later, his words remain alive, shaping how we tell stories, imagine heroes, and understand ourselves. Maybe that's the hidden lesson. The greatest storyteller might be the one who steps aside and lets the tale itself achieve immortality. This was 5 Minutes of Culture. If you enjoyed this deep dive, subscribe and join the discussion below. Was Homer a man, a myth, or something larger than either? Let us know in the comments. Stay curious and keep questioning, because history's biggest secrets often hide in the voices we can no longer hear.